Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Insurance Leadership Podcast. I'm Ryan Eaton, your host, and honored to have Greg Rudisill with Careington International on the show today. Greg brings us over 30 years of experience when it comes to building relationships and strategic partnerships. We asked Greg to be on here because we wanted to break down some of the common threads of what creates long-term business partnerships. We also wanted to look at how to build strong teams, how to inspire our teams, and what it takes to get our teams to make sure they have the quality of relationships they need in the market. So that's what we're going to dive into today. We thank you for listening in. Let's go ahead and get started. Greg, welcome to the show, buddy. We appreciate you being on.
Good to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Man, yeah, well, honored to have you here. Well, look, Greg, why don't we get started with telling everybody a little bit about kind of what you're doing now, kind of what got you into the industry, if you don't mind.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I went to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma, long time ago. Graduated. I've been in this industry now for 44 years. I started in life insurance, and I quickly discovered that was not where I wanted to be. Too many nights and weekends and people not showing up for meetings. So I was very fortunate to get on with the Blues, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma early on. Worked there for a number of years, then went to work for United Healthcare. Finally went over to Vision Service Plan, VSP. Left VSP and went to work for LensCrafters, Luxottica, and helped create what's now known as IMAD. And I've been now with Careington for a little bit over 19 years. But I worked with Careington back in my VSP days. They were a client both at VSP and at IMAD. So these people have been friends of mine and work colleagues for the last almost 20 years, but friends dating back to 91.
Man, that is awesome. Well, I know you've been with Careington now for, like you said, roughly 20 years. You're over strategic partnerships now, senior vice president of the company, one of the top leaders at the organization. And we were talking about it the other day. You and I was telling you the same thing. Every time I go somewhere and Careington gets brought up, everybody knows your name. Everybody's got that story that, oh, I remember Greg Rudisill and I did this, or I was here and Greg and I did this, and everyone just loves you. And you're kind of one of those ones who's always been able to build quality relationships. And that was kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on the show today, was to be able to talk about the core values of relationship and kind of how you build it and how you build teams and other things along those lines. But would you mind telling us kind of what's kind of been your secret sauce to building good, lasting partnerships and relationships?
Ryan, I wish I had a secret sauce because I'd love to bottle it up and sell that, but I don't have any secret sauce. I guess building relationships have been ingrained in me since my early childhood. I grew up in a small town in Tennessee, and growing up in that town, I guess I learned, regardless of a person's station in life, their education level, how young or how old they were, I could learn something from anybody. And that's what I was fortunate to learn early on, is just to listen to people, ask the right questions, and learn from other people. And, it's interesting when you listen to people and you ask questions, that's unusual, because people like to talk so much, including me at times. But if you're willing to listen to someone and ask questions, they want to get to know you. They're going to want to have a relationship with you. I also learned, I guess, probably early on, that building relationships is kind of one of the most important things in life. Relationships are challenging, many times painful, but they're very rewarding and fulfilling. In today's world, we're kind of in a very unsettled situation. It seems like people are settling for what I would refer to as inferior relationships that don't go very deep. I'm asking my kids, their friends, well, how many friendships do you have? Oh, I've got hundreds of friends, because they think you're a friend if you like something that they put on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. All this technology that we have, phones, all this stuff, Zoom calls, we think we're forming relationships by all this connectivity that we have, but we don't seem to be going very deep in those relationships. What I really feel like's happening is that we're settling for, like I said, an inferior relationship. And people are desperate to have someone that really will get to know them, not just the work them. You know, I could get to know the work Ryan, but it's important in work, at least I've found, is if I can get to know not only the work Ryan, but also what matters to you in life. What are your goals? What are you passionate about? And if I can find a way of helping you achieve those goals, both at work and in personal relationships, it goes a long way in forming these, what I call, deeper relationships.
I love that. Well, one of the things you said there, you know, learning from others, you know, I just think of the quote, you know, leaders are learners, right? And that's what, as leaders, we got to make sure we'll be learning, whether it's learning from the guy at the local grocery store or restaurant or, you know, CEO of Fortune 500 company. You know, we need to always be learning. And you're right, we have all seen that with the kids where, you know, oh, they like this, or oh, they're my friend, and they've never even talked to them on the phone before.
It's crazy. My wife's son had somebody that he was friends with for years because they played video games, and this kid lived somewhere else. Then the kid's family decided to move to where I live, Frisco, Texas, and then they got to meet each other and they discovered, wow, I didn't know this about that person, and that's when they really start forming a deeper relationship.
Well, speaking of deeper relationships, you know, we both know that in the business world, right, successful relationships don't happen overnight. And you've been doing this a while. I'd love to kind of ask you two questions here is, you know, what have you seen as kind of a common thread of a successful relationship? And then what have you seen as maybe another layer of characteristics of the ones that might last 30 years, you know, because you've been in the business, as you said, 44 years. And, you know, there's some business relationships that, hey, they're good relationships, they work. And then there's some that are just, man, they're just bound together and they work fantastic. I'd love to know if you've kind of seen any differences there or what you see as those characteristics.
Well, I have seen differences there. And I would say it's really is how deep do you get to know that other person. If you're just getting to know that other person based on their work life, that's only a little snippet of their life. And also what I try to do is I try to find a way to have what I call a symbiotic relationship with my clients. And what that means is there has to be some kind of interdependent relationship. Something, I'm getting some value out of it, and so are they. I'm not just a vendor to them. Like with Morgan White, I lease a dental network to you guys. That's one of the things we work together. And if we just had that relationship, you know, we could get to know each other, you know, be friendly toward one another. But what I want to do is I want to find ways that I can drive more business to you, make introductions for you. And the only way I can do that is if I learn really what are you passionate about? What are you guys doing outside of dental? What are you doing that's some other areas? And then I want to tap into that, learn more from you, and then try to put you in touch with people that I know that can help you in that area or bring business to you. I think that's what forms deeper relationships. When you start working with people and they see that you have their best in mind, it's just not what I'm going to get out of the relationship. Am I going to be able to sell them something else? No. What can I do to really care about that person, even if it doesn't benefit me at all? I think that's what really separates deep relationships from just an association with somebody.
Great. Bringing value. I like that. So let me ask you this. Is there anything in a relationship to you personally that you would say, hey, we cut ties if this happens, or something that would, for us, I remember one thing years ago, we had our number one product, the Premium Saver, and the guy actually brought us that idea, that concept, and David said, okay, we'll be partners on this, but there's two conditions. He said, number one, you can't do business with this guy. He's a crook, and I refuse to do business with him. He said, okay. He said, the second thing is you can't lie to me about it, and you can't lie to me about anything. He said, okay. And 6 months later, the guy had lied about doing business with this other guy who David said was the crook. And he said, sorry, we're done. And for us, it's one of those things that, hey, if we can't trust a partner, it's not a partnership, right? But I kind of wonder for you, is there anything out there that's kind of your red flag that you kind of draw the line at from a business standpoint?
Boy, that could be that's a great example that you provided. There was a guy that I worked with a long time ago, and then I hired him for a position, and bad things happened, so I had to get rid of him. And then I went to work at Careington, and they hired this guy without asking me, so I had to deal with it again, and the same thing happened. So I would say there's unfortunately there's people that just continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. Also, there's companies that, if they break, an agreement that you have, there's reasons to kind of end that relationships. But what I try to do is, even though I'm maybe ending that business relationship, I try to never dismiss that person. So that person I just mentioned that kind of burned me twice, I would still consider them as someone that I want to see improve in life. I want the best for them. And if they call me and they're sorry about it and they want to talk about it, I'm not going to dismiss them. I want to try to restore them into a relationship, but they're going to have to prove to me that they're not going to continue doing something wrong over and over again.
No, that's a great point. Very good point.
I've had to have people extend grace to me, so I'm going to extend grace to them as to other people as well.
I like that. Do unto others, right? Well, look, the one thing I noticed on the call the other day, we were talking about, we were laughing about 13 years ago, you and I and several other guys all went on a hunting trip together. And you brought up one of the guys' names who was on the trip. And I'd forgot he was even there. It had been so long ago, and kind of brought back a blast from the past. But it hit me after that. I had a book on my desk, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And one of the things that he says in there is, hey, remember people's names. And when you talk to them, remember their names. I think there was one of the U.S. presidents said the person's name 3 times every time they met somebody so they could help remember it. And it was one of those things. I was very impressed that you remembered this guy's name that long ago. Is that something that you try to incorporate in your relationships? Because you meet so many different people, whether it's conferences, meetings, et cetera. It's pretty impressive that you were able to remember this guy's name that long ago.
I wish I had secret sauce for that. I've taken some classes that try to help you remember people's names and other things, and it's some interesting ideas. I guess what I try to do is, whenever I meet someone new, if I can learn something about them, what are they passionate about? Something that they're interested in. And then I try to associate that with their name. It'll help me remember them in the future. It's like on that trip when that was really the first time I got to know you. So I remember you, Ryan, in camo, hunting bow, Mississippi State game. My ears are ringing because people are banging these cowbells. Ryan Eaton, that's Ryan. Now, there's a lot more to you than that, but I remember that experience, and I'll never forget you.
I remember you were right in the middle of the Mississippi State section with all of your Alabama on.
Sorry about that, friend.
Man, hey, another one coming up this weekend, actually.
It is.
Oh, that's great. Well, look, this next question, I'm not asking you this to kind of fill you up with hot air, or get you to kind of brag on yourself. But one of the things I've noticed is your team loves being around you. And I'd love to know kind of what are some different things, kind of as we hit on the relationship side. A lot of the people listening in now are leaders, leading their own agencies, carriers, TPAs, et cetera, whatever the case may be. And I'd love to kind of see, what have you done to help build confidence in your team, in you, so to say? What are some of your characteristics that you feel like that you have strengths in to kind of help build that unity that kind of brings everyone together?
Well, everybody has different strengths, and I wouldn't suggest anybody that's listening to this podcast do exactly what I do. But the one thing I do, and my team members would tell you, if they're going to have Greg on the call, they don't know what to expect, but it's going to be fun and a little bit, there's going to be some joking around a little bit. So I try to bring some levity to the conversation. I try to help people relax, feel like they are in a safe space to have fun, be themselves. They don't have to agree with me all the time. They can bring new ideas, and my responsibility is to listen to them and help make them feel confident that they can say whatever they need to, whatever they want to say, whatever ideas they have. That's going to be heard. It's going to be listened to, and then we can discuss whether we are going to use that or not.
That's good, and everybody loves that person on the call who kind of breaks the ice and gets everything rolling. It does. When you got that kind of that fun at the beginning of a call with a bunch of people who you may or may not know, it smooths out that conversation, and I can see how that loosens your team up. Kind of getting back to your team, your team loves you. I remember you play basketball, pickup games with different people on your team, go on trips. Y'all do the big thing at Careington. I remember I saw for years on social media how y'all all have the Halloween dress-up costumes and do all the different things around the office, which really builds a lot of team unity. How have you kind of helped maximize that closeness with your team, and what are some things you do personally to help build that unity?
Those are great things that you just remembered. We try to find ways where they can see myself and other people at our company that are leaders as being no different than they are. We're no better than they are. Everybody, we want to treat people as they are better than us. We're here to serve them. We're here to help raise them and make them successful. And that's what I want to get across to the people I work with is I'm not here for you to serve me. I'm here to serve you. And I'm here to learn from you and be a partner with you. I don't know if that's what you were getting at, but that's what came to my mind just then.
I was at a conference years ago, and the guy was kind of telling some advice he gave his kids. And one of the times he told his kid, he said, look, you're not better than anybody, but nobody's better than you. And I love that. I thought it was great analysis, and what you just said, servant's heart. It's caring for the people around you and working as a team. Now I know you got tough situations, right, that pop up, and you mentioned one earlier kind of with a situation of someone you had hired and someone who got hired. What do you do in those situations where, people make mistakes? It happens all the time. We do too. How do you correct those situations, and how do you still at the same time pull out the best in the other person and build them up and not pull them down in kind of a correction type environment?
Again, what I said earlier, I would say again here in this situation. I want to let them know I've made mistakes before. I want to extend grace to them, that mistakes matter. They need to be corrected. We need to come clean when we make a mistake, but we're in this together. So thanks for letting me know you made a mistake. Now what are we going to do to fix this? I also want to hear from them and get their suggestions on what they're going to do to correct the mistake, and find out from them what I can do to help them in getting the mistake corrected. But I guess that's what I would say about that.
Let me ask you this. I butchered this one a few weeks ago. Someone brought something they thought was an issue to me, and I did an awful job at listening and doing something about it. I just didn't see it as an issue, so I just kind of let the ball drop. So I, completely missed it. But what do you do when someone brings you an issue maybe and you don't really see it as an issue, but you're still trying to listen to them and letting them know they're being heard, but at the same time you may see it differently? And how do you kind of handle those type of situations?
First I want to try to listen to them. That's critical in building the relationship. Not just listen to them, but really hear from their perspective. What do you mean by that? Why is this a big concern to you? Tell me, what are you thinking about this? So I'm trying to get into looking at things from their perspective first. And then, like I said just a minute ago, I want to know what kind of solutions they've thought about, because first of all, they've been thinking about the problem longer than I have. So I want to know what are you thinking? What are you thinking about the way to get out of this problem? Have you talked to others about it? What are their suggestions? And I don't really want to give them my opinion unless they first ask me for my opinion. So first I want to listen, get their perspective, hear what they think they can do to resolve it, or what other advice they've come across. And if they invite me to give my perspective, I will be more than happy to do so. And then lastly, I try to keep everything confidential and let them know that this is going to be confidential, unless they give me the permission to share it.
Oh, that's good. So look, I had another question come into me the other day that someone was asking me, and they were just kind of asking for my opinion. And I'll leave my opinion by the wayside, but I want to get your thoughts on this. A guy was telling me that, he's a little bit younger in the business, right? Like we all have been, who've been in the business since kind of after college. And he said that he doesn't feel like he gets kind of the respect that he might deserve or might not deserve when he meets with different people who might be 10 years plus his senior. And sometimes, whether it's in presentations or other stuff, he's kind of sometimes gets viewed as he felt like the kid in the room, so to say. And he was asking me kind of my opinion and kind of how I viewed it, et cetera. I would love to know from two questions kind of here. One, from your side, do you handle someone maybe who's newer at a company? Do you treat them with not maybe less respect, but give less validity to kind of what they're bringing to the table because they're new? And then also, do you think kind of seniority or age kind of brings something with the business, and kind of when did you get to your kind of comfort level where you felt like, hey, I mean, right now you could pick up the phone and call just about anybody you wanted and have an in or have someone who could connect you, but that didn't happen when you were, 25 getting in the business doing life insurance, right? So
right.
Kind of give me your thought kind of on those different questions there I jumbled together for you.
That's fine. But, well, we all tend to respect people that have had, a consistent row of successes after successes. And that many times takes a long time. However, we're living in a new kind of world now where young people are coming into work and they want to be heard right away, and they want their opinions to be valued. And so I try to take on a little bit of a different mindset. It's back to something we said. I want to respect everybody regardless of their tenure or their age. I think a lot of younger people have a lot to offer, and I want to hear from them. And I want them to feel comfortable that they can tell me what their opinion is of a situation. I may not agree with them, but their opinions, their ideas are valid, and I want them to be able to have the freedom to tell me if they dislike something that we're doing, or they have a better way of doing something, because we might find that there is a better way. I like being disruptive in business, and so sometimes these new ideas come from people that have been outside of our business and are brand new to our business. And they look at things differently, and they say, why do you do this and have done this for so long? Have you ever considered this? So I want to listen to them, give them value in saying new ideas, and I want to take those into consideration, learn from them.
That's smart. Going back to kind of what you said earlier, learning from everyone you talk to, right? I mean, that's really the goal at the end of the day, and listening to them. So next question I have for you is kind of when you're working with your team, right, to build relationships and get them out there and kind of helping develop them to where they can go out and do what you do, and you can delegate responsibility and authority. I've heard different people say that the relationship is just as important, if not more important, than the actual product itself. How do you motivate your team to get out there, and how important do you view the relationship and the different deals that you put together, and how do you drive your team to get out there and make things happen?
Well, whatever we're selling, product or service, is very important, but the relationships that you develop are just as important. And I want people that work with me to realize that. We can be a vendor, we can be a great product and a great service, but it's just a commodity unless you build something a little bit deeper with people. and find that symbiotic relationship where you're not just bringing a product and service to them, but you're driving value in other areas that they can't get if they switch to a different competitor. So that's what I would say about that. I may not have answered. You had a few questions in there. Is there something else that you want me to cover, Ryan?
No, I think that's good. I'm really just trying to see with your team, when you're trying to emphasize the power of relationships, right? Is there anything that you do specifically to drive that point home that, hey, I want you, following up with these people this amount of time. I want you to make sure you go spend some quality time with them. I want you to go, take this person, do something unique, or I want you to, nurture that vendor relationship more, whatever the case may be. Is there anything there that you do kind of special to emphasize that with your team?
Again, I would say that the relationship is going to be very important, and to have a deep relationship and have that symbiotic relationship, you, the salesperson that I'm talking to, you need to go and go the extra mile and ask questions about them. Not just questions that are about products and services, but what's really going on at that company. What are their goals? What are they struggling with? What's going on even in their personal life? I know that's can be a taboo area, but I've never been shy. I've never shied away from asking people what's going on with them personally, about their family and other things. People may be hesitant a little bit, but once they find out you're doing this because you truly care about them, they're going to open up. And especially if you open up to them about some things, that it's going to form a much deeper relationship. So the people that are salespeople at our company, I want them to know that we're here to care about our clients. We don't want just a client for a year or two. We want them for life. And if you're going to have a lifetime relationship, you got to get to know these people. So you need to get in there and ask questions and be vulnerable yourself.
I love that. And I'll kind of compliment you on doing that. Even when we got on today to do this recording, one of the guys who helped kind of set up all the audio and technical stuff had a baby this morning at 8 o'clock. First thing you said was, hey, has he had his baby? And you've never even met him before, just through emails and communications. But it's that genuine caring for others and building that relationship. And I agree with you. I think asking about people's family and their personal lives, that's why we do what we do typically, is for our families. So, it's very important. Well, look, Greg, some wrap-up questions here, kind of rapid fire, I guess you could say. Okay. I got 5 of them for you. So, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received from a mentor?
And I've just got this over the weekend, actually. And that is, I went on a little retreat with people from some executives from all around the country, and we had a speaker, like this neuroscience guy. And one of the things I learned, and I can relate it back to having deeper relationships with people, is that humans tend to bond on a deeper level when we connect around our weaknesses. If you're just connecting around your strengths, we can all boast about, oh, look how great we are. But if you open up and you're vulnerable and you tell people, here's some areas I failed in, here's some weaknesses, they're going to open up to you, and that those being bonded around weaknesses, but not staying there, finding solutions to get above those weaknesses, that is a really key in forming deep bonds and relationships, I've found. And I just heard this again this weekend.
It's a real good one. So look, what's the best business book you've read?
Oh boy, usually when people ask me about favorites or best, I tend to say it just depends on the season I'm in. But there is one that I recall from over about 20 years ago, and it was a book by Gallup, and it's called First Break All the Rules. And that title resonated with me many years ago, because I'm kind of the rule breaker. Now, I'm not going to break rules where there's safety involved, but I like to look at what are the rules that we have in the insurance industry and the business world, and is there a different way of looking at things? I enjoy breaking rules from time to time, and when people realize that maybe the rules are holding us back from looking at things from a different perspective. So that book went a long way in showing me that. And then another thing I learned from this book, which I've used forever now, is that whatever you're really good at almost every day and that you enjoy, that's a skill that you have, and you need to focus on building that skill and finding a job where you can let that skill thrive. And you manage around your weaknesses. This was a key point in this book, and it really changed the way I did performance reviews and everything. Usually in performance reviews, oh yeah, you're good here, you're good here, you're good. Now let's spend 80% of our time focusing on all these bad areas. And as in work, we try to get these people to get better at their areas they're not good at. And so I found out, look, let me see if I can manage around the areas that people are not good at and let them focus on what they're really good at. It's like me. I'm not great at organization, so I have an assistant that's fabulous at it. And she keeps me organized, and I can focus all my efforts on stuff I enjoy.
I love that. That's so true, though. It's funny how in those type reviews, it seems like you do. You did great at this, did great at this, did great at this, but now we need to talk about this stuff. And you spend, it's so backwards.
All your time on that.
It's so backwards. All right, how many books do you read or listen to a month?
Yeah, so most people find this is hard to believe. I'm probably listening to 3 books at a time, like today. I've already listened to parts of 3 books. I'm reading probably between 5 to 10 books a month. I listen to about 10 podcasts a day. I read 20 to 30, 40 articles a day. But now I'm kind of peculiar. So like when we get in the car and my book comes on, my daughter and my wife go, "Can you turn that off?" We don't even know what those people are saying because it's so fast. Because I listen to them at like 1.7 speed.
Oh, I love it. I love it. What's the best business lesson you've ever learned?
Something that I've done ever since I was new in sales, I look people in their eyes. I want to listen to them to try to first understand where they're coming from. I also like to find ways of serving people. So, again, regardless of what my level is, what can I do to help that person so that they really know that I care for them and I'm not here just for my own benefit. Look people in the eye, listen, what can I do to serve them?
Good. And last one, all right, kind of off kilter here a little bit, but what's the best financial advice you've ever been given and that you'd like to implement?
First, break all the rules, as I said, so this is going to be contrary, but I try to find places and people to give to so that I can help them. Because I think over a lifetime, it will come back to me many times over if I'm helping people and committing money to them and helping them grow.
Oh, that's great. Blessed to be a blessing, right, Greg?
Very, very true.
Man, that's awesome. Well, look, buddy, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you being on the show today. You did an excellent job, and I can't thank you enough for your time and all the solid information you gave us today. This was great.
Well, maybe at least one idea was decent.
It was fantastic, buddy. Well, look, we sure do appreciate it, and thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Ryan, and good luck to you and the Morgan White Group.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Greg. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Insurance Leadership Podcast. We thank you for listening in. And remember, a good plan today is better than a great plan months from now. And we would greatly appreciate it if you would like or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening in on. Thank you very much.